The two bikers set out for home, but as soon as they entered their house, Susan's phone rang. Her boss called, asking her to get to the gas station at once. Jessica, Susan's colleague, disappeared from her workplace. After this incident in 2013, a sense of danger spread over Lake Michigan shores like an oil spill. Someone was hunting and hurting women, those who had a steady job, a family, and were generally considered low-risk victims. This offender would be plaguing Muskegon County for several more years till he'd capture a teenage girl who was determined to survive at any cost. When Susan returned to the gas station, it was flooded with blinking blue and red lights. The police officers had already searched the building and the parking lot. Jessica Heeringa, the cashier working the late shift, was nowhere to be found. In the back room there was her purse, with a large amount of money, as well as her jacket and cigarettes. The cash in the register was left untouched. It seemed the woman was taken away by force, and the captor took no interest in money or valuables. It was Jessica he wanted. In 2013, Jessica Heeringa was 25. Her boyfriend and her 3-year-old son Zevin would visit her at the gas station occasionally. Almost every car owner in Norton Shores knew the blonde cashier, including Brenda. On April 25th, she came to fill up her gas tank. It was after dark. Jessica would always smile at Brenda, but this evening it was different. The cashier seemed scared and pale. Brenda said she should not be alone at such a late hour, and that her boyfriend should come and take her home. Meanwhile, another client was wandering along the aisles of the convenience store. The man harshly interrupted Brenda, saying, "She's got her customers looking out for her too." Jessica shivered. Brenda didn't care to contradict. Instead, she decided to wait outside the station in her car till the weird client drove away in his silver vehicle. Then, on April 25th, nothing happened. But Jessica's next shift ended in another way. On April 26th, she was working late again. That evening, two bikers noticed a silver minivan in the parking lot with its driver shutting and opening the rear hatch. Then, just after 11 p.m., another regular, Craig Harpster, came for gas, but there was nobody behind the cash register. Craig walked around the building and looked in the toilets, everywhere. Not a soul. He called 911.
Muskegon 911, where's your emergency?
There's nobody here. I don't see anybody. There's a car here, but it is very suspicious.
On the pavement in the back of the station, the officers discovered a blood stain. The DNA analysis proved it was Jessica's blood. Also outside Exxon, they came upon a laser light cover from a handgun, yet there was no strong evidence that Jessica had been fatally wounded. The community hoped she'd soon be found, alive. Everyone was looking for Jessica. Ordinary citizens, family, and the police, from canine to behavioral units. Common prayers were held, candles and cards brought to vigils, and volunteers organized search missions. It seemed the whole county came together to find the young mother from Norton Shores. The media kept a close eye on the events, and Jessica's relatives didn't mind. They hoped the public attention would make the police put more effort into the search, and maybe someone watching a news coverage would recall and come up with something useful. Cameras were also focusing on little Zevin. The boy was constantly asking for his mother. Tears were sure swelling in thousands of viewers' eyes. To find Jessica, 12 ground and 2 underwater searches were conducted, but they were futile. The only manageable piece of evidence was captured by the cameras on a local bar. On the footage, there was a silver minivan moving toward the gas station. The picture was so blurry it was impossible to make out the driver or the license plates.
I wish I had the technology like you see on TV where you could blow it up and I could see the driver inside, but that doesn't exist for me.
A little over a year passed since Jessica's disappearance. Rebekah Bletsch went for a run along rural Automobile Road in the early evening of June 29, 2014. Rebekah was 36. A fit, joyful extrovert, she was a mother to a daughter and had a large family and a whole lot of friends. Rebekah never came back from her run. She was found dead by the side of the road. 4 bullets ended her life. But who would possibly want to do it to the jogger? For a year after the incident with Rebekah, No more women went missing on Lake Michigan shores, but Jessica's captor wasn't found either. He was still out there, and he had plans. There was almost no progress in Jessica's case. The detectives looked deeply at cases in other jurisdictions. They searched for any connections, but no suspects had been arrested, and Heeringa hadn't been located. Norton Shores Police Chief John Gale said, "You get that adrenaline rush, that we're going in the right direction, and then boom, it drops." Detectives said they felt like a failure. It happened in the spring of 2016. Why did she even go to this party in the middle of nowhere? A friend was supposed to take Madison home, but instead was snoring locked up in the car along with the keys. Madison decided to walk back home, although it wasn't a good idea. She had been trudging along a rural road for several hours now. She was 16. She was cold and tired. The morning light was breaking. Who would even drive these roads at such an unearthly hour? But then Madison heard an engine roar behind her. A silver minivan stopped by the girl. The driver offered to give her a ride. Madison knew you shouldn't get into a car with a stranger, but she had to get home somehow. The girl asked to at least make a call. The seemingly friendly, bespectacled man said okay, but she had to get into the van, he insisted. As soon as Madison was inside the passenger seat, the car pulled off.
I asked if I could use his phone, and he said no, and then just stared at me, and I asked to get out of the car. He just kept going and stared at me, but he was slowing down. He reached under his seat and grabbed a gun.
The girl decided to save herself no matter what. Madison jumped from the moving vehicle. She didn't feel the pain. She wouldn't stop running. Madison was still screaming as she reached the nearest house. The officers responding to the 911 call would hear her story about a man in a silver van. The same type of vehicle was in Jessica Heeringa's case. Susan and Eric witnessed it. It was captured on a surveillance cam. This time, though, one other camera at a nearby blueberry farm produced a much higher quality picture. The detectives could make out a Dodge Grand Caravan. The police and the community were on the lookout for the car, and soon they arrested its seemingly friendly, bespectacled driver. This was also the turning point in the cases of Jessica Heeringa and Rebekah Bletsch. The investigators suspected the silver van's driver had something to do with both women. The driver's name was Jeffrey Willis. Neighbors never had any trouble with Jeffrey. He was always ready to lend a hand or borrow a tool. He worked night shifts at a furniture manufacturer. His wife loved reading and taught teenage girl groups at her church. A normal life on the outside.
That's what's scary about this, is that there are people out there that can live two different lives. To me, that says that he's very cold and calculating, because it does take some thought, it does take some effort, it does take really just some strategy in order to pull that off.
After Jeffrey's arrest, the officers searched his minivan, and what they discovered was a veritable Pandora's box. There was a black toolbox with a padlock, and inside, gloves, handcuffs, chains, ropes, and several syringes. One contained a sedative. Jeffrey tried to assure the police that those things in the toolbox belonged to both him and his wife, but the woman stated she'd never seen them until the police showed her the pictures.
So, you didn't use ropes and chains and handcuffs?
Absolutely not.
Were you aware at all, or did he share with you the tens of thousands of abduction, torture, kill videos that he had downloaded?
No.
Among other findings in Willis's van, there was a gun that tied all three cases together. Firstly, it was the weapon the man threatened Madison with. Secondly, the shell casings recovered near Rebekah's body matched the gun. Thirdly, it had no laser light cover it sold with. The same cover was found by the gas station Jessica was taken from. This woman met Jeffrey when she was 15, and he was 17.
He was forward. He thought highly of himself. He was charismatic. I mean, it wasn't just that he kind of was, it was that he thought that of himself. He was a lot of things that girls should want.
At school, Willis was something of a playboy. A sprinter, he was fit and athletic. However, his attitude towards women left a lot to be desired. On Jeffrey's PC, there were thousands of videos depicting cruel treatment of women, and in his shed, he hid a 5-page list of the U.S. serial offenders. Hash marks were written against 2 names, 2 criminals who carried their horrible toys in toolboxes. Also on Jeffrey's PC, the police found the most incriminating evidence of all, a folder titled VIX, short for victims apparently. Inside, there were other folders with the names of Jessica Heeringa and Rebekah Bletsch, and in those folders, there were photos of the women. Jessica is now presumed dead. And here is an accessory to the crime, Jeffrey's cousin Kevin Bluhm. He once worked as a corrections officer, but his life was nothing like that of a law enforcement officer. Bluhm confessed he'd seen Jessica's body at their grandparents' house and helped Willis take it to a remote location and bury it. The court sentenced Bluhm to 476 days and credited his 476 days served. He got 5 years probation and was required to wear a GPS tether for a year. Detectives suspect, though, that Jeffrey Willis started abducting women long before Jessica's disappearance. In 1996, a hunter found a girl's body in the woods of the same Muskegon County. The girl was identified as 15-year-old Angela Thornburg, a high school student from Fruitport, Michigan, but the crime was never solved. What does it have to do with Jeffrey Willis? At the time, he worked as a janitor for Angela's school district. However, no substantial evidence exists that the girl perished because of him. The flow of time has wiped away the details of this tragic story. Was it possible to prevent Jessica Heeringa's demise? Her parents are sure it was. If the gas station had surveillance cameras installed, Jeffrey Willis would have been found much earlier, or the unblinking camera's eye would have deterred him from committing the crime at all. The victim's relatives requested a bill known as Jessica Heeringa Act. It requires gas stations and convenience stores open at night to install and maintain a security camera system or to have at least 2 employees on the shift. The bill has not yet been passed, but some business owners did take notice. For instance, the Exxon station Jessica worked at has the cameras installed. Better late than never. This story leaves us with a lot of questions unanswered. How come Jessica never reported the creepy client at her convenience store? What really happened to Rebekah? How could Jeffrey's wife never suspect his double life? Do you have any ideas? Like, subscribe, and stay safe.